Okay, third time is the charm. I'm hoping this works this time. I'm trying to add somebody to the live video. So hang on. Works. It's working.
It's working.
Okay. So sorry for the people that have been trying to watch and then I keep going in and out. Um, so everybody, this is Abby.
Hello.
Abby is a patient of mine who so graciously agreed to do an Instagram live, and then we're going to share this on Facebook. Our business is Facebook also, and all that, so everyone can see it. So what I wanted to have Abby do today was do a bit of a patient testimonial. So um, Abby is a really awesome success story of what functional medicine is and what it's about. So that's why I wanted to have her on here. So I'm going to explain a little bit about what happened with Abby, but then I want her to explain it in her own words. So Abby basically reached out saying that she had been dealing with chronic stomach issues for probably about 5 years, even more.
About 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, so it was a bit. And I told her that it was nothing like I had not seen before, and I was really confident we could get somewhere. I suggested some blood testing and some a stool analysis, and then I'll explain exactly what happened from there. But Abby, go ahead and just say kind of your story up until you met me virtually. We haven't actually met because of COVID, but virtually.
Someday we'll meet in person.
Yeah.
Sure. So I moved to Columbus like 5 or 6 years ago, and I was working a pretty stressful job, and I noticed I had lost a bunch of weight in 1 month, and I was like not feeling very good. I was exhausted and all of that. But then I ended up in the emergency room for 4 days, and the doctors were just saying that I was lying. There was nothing wrong. I had pulled a muscle in my stomach, and I had been an extreme athlete for a long time, so I know what that felt like. And finally, I went and had an endoscopy, and they found 7 lesions and ulcers in my stomach. And all they did was they just kept slapping a Band-Aid on it. Here, take this pain med. Here, take Pepto-Bismol. Don't eat citrusy foods or acidic foods, and you'll be okay. So I was like, okay, that's fine. And I just noticed that I just kept going up and down. Like I'd feel good and then I'd feel bad. Um, Extremely exhausted. My acne was bad. My hair started falling out. Bloated all the time. Couldn't go to the bathroom. Just a bunch of awful things. And the doctors just kept putting me on antibiotics and um, um, lots of procedures and all of that. And I just wasn't getting anywhere. So I finally went to another doctor who just was like, oh, you're just chronically constipated. So just laxative after laxative after laxative. And finally, after 2 years of doing that, I had had enough, and I wanted to move into the functional medicine route, which is where I found Dr. Melissa.
Yay. And so this is the most typical type of patient I see, is that somebody who's not getting answers, or who has been to multiple specialists, and they basically chalk it up and they say, well, we did an endoscopy and colonoscopy and blood work and we can't find anything, and here's a prescription and you're on your way. Rarely does a gastroenterologist actually offer dietary advice, supplement advice, or go into deeper testing like we do. So when I met Abby right away, I was like, well, we're going to start with some basic blood work, and then I want to do a comprehensive stool analysis, which is unlike any other testing out there that a conventional doctor will do. This looks at the structure and function of the gut. It looks for inflammation, dysbiosis, which is balance of good and bad bacteria. It looks for any bug in the gut, the lining of the stomach. It does a lot, and it tells us a lot about what's actually going on at a deeper level. The big thing, though, the telltale for me is that I ran an outlier blood panel. So I run the same, I'd say like 60% of labs on most functional medicine patients, and then most all patients will get something unique to them depending on their symptoms. So I ran amylase and lipase, which are two digestive enzymes. Because right away I'm like, well, she's having major digestive issues. Let me just check on these to see. And I don't run these in everybody with digestion issues. Again, it's a lot of me listening when I meet the patient. I'm trying to pick apart, well, which tests should I start with? There's a whole, I mean, in a perfect world, I would run a million tests on every patient, but we can't do that. So I ran amylase and lipase, and I got it back, and it was abnormal. So I right away was like, well, where are we going to dig even more? I waited to get back her stool analysis, and we looked at that, and there was definitely some markers in there that were showing me there was inflammation, possibly some methane or gas kind of things going on. So something like alluding to the fact that there was some bacterial issues. But once again, I didn't really care about that. Sure, if there was bacterial issues, well, yeah, there's a gut problem, but I wanted to know, why is this happening to her? Like, what is this gut issue coming from? So from there, I dug and I read a little bit into the exact markers that came back in her case. And right away, I was like, you know what, let me just run a celiac panel, because these markers are lining up to that. And we ran the celiac panel, and this is the difference between me and a conventional doctor, is my celiac panel consists of 6 different markers, whereas some doctors will only run 1. So we ran it on Abby, and only 2 of the 6 markers came back as abnormal, but that was a huge find. So one, that told us that she had celiac. The second thing that was almost the scary part of it is let's just say a doctor ran a celiac panel but didn't run every single one of those markers, it would have been missed. And you would have been told, oh, you don't have celiac. That's not the case. I just happened to run a very comprehensive list, because that's what functional medicine does. So basically from there, I found out she had celiac, and we had some major gut repair to do. We had some major work to do to fix your stomach. So go ahead, Abby, and tell just, about your experience with that. And at that point you were like, what the heck? Why hadn't any doctors ever done this? Like, what was going on? So kind of go ahead and tell about that.
Sure. So I had been told multiple times that I had SIBO, extreme bacterial overgrowth, and let's take care of this, let's take care of this. And there was a couple of times I had brought up, could I have a dairy intolerance? Sometimes I notice when I eat ice cream or eat sour cream or eat yogurt, like I just don't feel good. And my doctor was like, sure, let's test you for it. Well, it came back negative. So I said, could I have celiac? And the doctor said, absolutely not. You're too young to have celiac. There's no way that you have it. I just don't even think about that. We're just going to rule that out. So trusting the doctor, I said, okay, that's fine. But I just noticed, no matter how much water I drank, no matter how healthy I ate, no matter how much exercise I got, I wasn't doing well. So when I went to Melissa and she said you had celiac, I'm sure the look on my face, my eyes popped out of my head, and I was like, what? Why has no one ever told me this before? Because although I've done so much damage to my insides, it's just switching your lifestyle. And I have been doing this for 2 months, and I feel so much better. My bloating is gone. I've noticed my hair is growing. My nails are thicker. My skin has cleared. I'm sleeping better. I am not exhausted. And all of the supplements that I have been on, I think have definitely helped me. And I know that Melissa has a plan to help heal my insides and get me on the right track, because for years I wasn't, and I know I caused a lot of damage, but I'm just so happy that although it is celiac and it's something I'll have for the rest of my life, that she found what I've been looking for 6 years, and I haven't been getting an answer.
Yay. And that's like the most true amazing thing, and that's what makes my world go round and my life so happy, when patients come to me with these success stories like this, because and it happens all the time. It happens daily with functional medicine. It's really cool. And with we're chiropractor student, it happens daily with chiropractic medicine. It happens daily with what we do in our office, because that's what we do and that's what we pride ourselves. We don't ever want somebody to come in and say, I have X, Y, and Z, and I was just chalk it up to blah, blah, blah. We're going to figure out what's wrong and why this is happening. And that's why getting a full panel of testing, and I have to be very diligent and very patient with testing too with patients, because not all patients, some patients would say, I don't really want to get the celiac panel. And I have to say, well, we're sure we can aid your gut and we can get you as healthy as we can, but we still don't know what's wrong. So it's all about me being very diligent and reading and really researching what's going on with every individual patient. That's why it's very individualized also, because sure, I can just I can say, okay, on your way, just go ahead and take X, Y, and Z supplement for the rest of your life. No way. I mean, I want to try my best. And of course, there are some dead ends at some point, but we do our best and dig. And that's the case with Abby. We found what's going on, but now I have her on a plan to help heal all the damage. I have her on a very specific immune support because this is an autoimmune disease after all. Autoimmune diseases travel in packs, so we want to make sure that another autoimmune disease doesn't get flared, things like that. And then also the really big takeaway with an autoimmune disease is, I don't know if anybody listened from the beginning, that she had a stressful time, and that's what set off her system. It was a job. So usually that happens. So stress sets off your immune system, and that's what can start autoimmune diseases. She may have been dealing with this for a long time, but her body was doing a really good job at suppressing it, and then something tipped the scale. So that's what I listen for too when I talk to patients. I say, did you have a stressful event? Did you have a pregnancy? If it's a male, did you have male or female? Did you have a car accident? Things like that. Something happened. And that's what happened with Abby. And I'm just so happy that you found me. I think you found me too on Instagram, right? I
I
think.
did. Yeah.
Cool.
Someone had posted in their story about patients having success with you. I think there was a couple. So I personally reached out to one of them and said, you and I sound like we have the same thing. Tell me your story. So she told me all about her story and about you. And I was like, I have hit a dead end. This can't hurt just to at least reach out and talk to you. And I'm so grateful that I did, because it was within 2 weeks you had figured out what my issue was. And I was just like, I've been doing this for 6 years and not a single person has been like, hey, you could have this, until I met you. So I'm so thankful for you too.
I'm so glad. And that's the fun part. I always say to Abby, I'm like, yeah, for me, I'm like, it was like a no brainer for me to run these panels. So I even am in awe sometimes of what has happened in the past. And I'm like, 2 weeks, it took us 2 weeks to figure out what was going on. And it took you 6 years of struggling. And it took me literally, like I say, 2 weeks to be like, oh, here we go. Here it is. And that's what's fun about functional medicine is it's fun. And I mean, you're an awesome success story. Sometimes things can take a little longer, but we get there, we dig and we find it. And my goal is to make, every person I come in contact with have a story like yours where we can just figure it out and get to it. So I'm so happy. And like I say, now you're on a plan. Sure, life is different without gluten, but it's not as bad as it was probably prior. So
No, absolutely not. And honestly, I have to say, when I first found out like no gluten, I was like, okay, this is going to be fine. No bread, no pasta, none of that. But if you look at food that has gluten in it, it sneaks in there. So like the list you
yeah.
sent me. So when I had said earlier, when I would eat ice cream or yogurt, I would feel sick. And it's not the dairy, there is hidden gluten in things like that, like salad dressing. So it's really, at first I was like a little overwhelmed, but now I'm into the swing of things 2 months later. And hanging out at the grocery store does take a little bit longer, but honestly, I've learned so much, and I'm learning that eating whole foods is the way to go. And the amount of things that are gluten-free now compared to, I'm sure, 10, 20 years ago is so abundant, and it's so accessible that it's really making it a lot easier to transition. And honestly, you can make a lot of things gluten-free. Like the other night, I just made a gluten-free barbecue sauce homemade. So things can
Yes,
be
good for you.
gluten-free. Thank you. And it's not that hard to transition, but at first it's a shock because you're like, no, really? And it's like, you really think about it,
Overwhelming.
and it's so true.
Yeah, and it is very overwhelming at first, but that's why I'm here to walk through. And I try not to overwhelm patients. I say, look, here's what happened. Let's take another time to chat about your diet, and then let's move slowly, because I don't ever want to shove a million things at a patient at once, because otherwise they'll be like, I don't know what I'm doing. This is too much. So
And
we
that's
take our
exactly what you've
time.
done.
And that's what, sure, in a real world, I would say, here's your diagnosis, goodbye, don't ever eat gluten again. But it's a slow process. A lot of my patients too, I start with an elimination type diet and I urge them to do it. Does everyone do it? No, because people are human and they want to be able to eat what they want to eat. But the people that can eliminate things are the success, because then we know what's causing the issue. Food is the root of our health. It's the root of evil. It's good and bad. But, in your case, you're learning to navigate the waters, but forever your life, you will take this, you will have this knowledge. And, anybody you come in contact with, even that, like at restaurants, you've been finding out how to not navigate and just, verbalize, hey, advocate for yourself. Like, I need this gluten free. And that's the hard part, but with time, it'll get a lot easier too.
Yeah, absolutely. I was telling Dr. Melissa that I went out to dinner a month ago with my family, and Friday night I had a really good experience at a local restaurant where they went so far as to check the ingredients on the chicken stock that they're using in their risotto. And they just took such great care of me and my needs. And then the next day I went somewhere else, and I didn't have that good of a success story. And I like to say that I was glutened because I didn't advocate for myself, and I didn't trust, and I trusted the waiter when I knew in my gut something wasn't right, but I just went ahead and did it anyway. But now it's taking care and taking the baby steps, because I mean, I messed up a couple of times, but I know now after just 2 months that it's not that hard, and just to advocate for yourself, because overall it's yourself that you have to look out for, because no one else is going to look out for you unless you're Dr. Melissa, because she has just done a great job, and she is taking the small baby steps to ensure that I am healing and not throwing it all at me, which is something that I appreciate too.
Yes, absolutely. And that's why patients are human too. And I've gone through this journey myself too. And I know that when I was throwing everything at once, it's like, no, it's not doable. So you have to do it in baby steps as best you can. So that's what I'm here for. And I'm just so glad you are like such a awesome success story. And I absolutely love being able to treat you. And I'm so glad you're here, and I'm glad you wanted to do the Facebook Live with me, because this is a way to get the word out to patients and future patients, and to explain what we do in the process. And there's a lot of legwork on a patient's end too. You have to be ready to go down this journey and ready to make the changes. And but you usually are at wit's end when you get to me anyways. So that's what a lot of patients are. So we dig and we dig and we figure it out. So
Absolutely.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad. Thank you for doing this, and I'll make sure I share it too. That way it can be all over, and you are the best, and I hope you keep healing well.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for letting me do this and to share my story, as well as share my story with you, because I do believe that functional medicine could really help you if you're suffering, if anyone out there is suffering and you're just at your wit's end and you just don't know where to go anymore. Please reach out to Dr. Melissa. She has helped me so much, and I really appreciate you too. So thank you so much for everything you've done.
Yes, thank you. And that warms my heart. That's why I always remember why I'm doing what I do every day. It's people like you. So thank you. You're the best.
Thank you.
Yes. Yay. Well, then I will chat with you soon, lady. And thanks everyone who's on for listening. I loved it. And we will be back with more of these probably soon. Who knows? I mean, maybe I'll keep grabbing every week. We'll be like, new story.
Sure. Yeah. Anytime. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Have a wonderful afternoon.
You too. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye.